Imperator Rome has a mechanic called Antagonist nations, similar to Lucky nations in Europa Universalis, which gives a bunch of bonuses to the strength of the nation, but more importantly makes the AI much more aggressive. Ordinarily, this applies to the Parthian tribes of Central Asia and Rome. This usually makes Rome a very powerful opponent in the late game if left unchecked. For this video, I've modded, and by that I mean I made a lazy Python script, which has assigned the antagonist mechanic to every single starting nation. So if we look in Rome, sure enough, there is a happiness bonus to accepted cultures due to being an antagonist nation. But if we look somewhere way out on the periphery, here, this tiny nation in Socotra, if we look at their accepted pops down here, again, they also have that antagonist nation bonus, and so do all the other nations here at the start. So things are about to get quite bumpy. Now, as we start going, I'll put it to speed 5. Now, war can't be declared straight away for a few months, but as that time runs out, we will see a lot of conflicts emerging. And the first nations to really look at initially are the Diadochi, the successors to Alexander the Great, who are going to be going to war. And in particular, the Antagonists here, they are going to either succeed very well or be strongly defeated. So this is going to be the first nation to really watch as things get going here. So we already have some wars going on. And there you go, Rome is at war. And it looks like the Antagonists are mobilizing also for a war. The Macedonians here are fighting some of the Greek city-states. And of course, remember that a lot of these Antagonists have a lot of feudatory nations, so they've got a lot of clients and that sort of thing. So we'll see what happens there. A couple years in, and we have got a lot of conflicts here and a lot of battles happening in Western Europe. All the little tribes are at each other's throats. We have the Romans expanding somewhat. Quite usual, but of course, remember this time they're not going to be the only antagonist nation. There's going to be a bunch of opponents for them to fight. The Antagonists look like they have lost all of the Syria and Levant regions, which is quite usual, but we'll see if they can stabilize here, at least in Asia Minor, although it looks like the Egyptians are giving them a really hard time here. Macedon is doing quite well. If we look into the Antagonists, you see they got wars against 3 of the major Diadochi. So it looks like things aren't really going so well for them. Just a stunning mass of mobilized armies all fighting each other here. Now Rome has got itself into a war here. Rome is expanding into the north as usual with the Gallic tribes here in Italy. But the real big battle that's looming is the battle between Rome and the Etruscans. We'll see if, unlike history, the Etruscans can make something happen here when they inevitably go to war. So it looks like the Seleucids here, now at the start they have a decision whether or not they want to make friends with the Marias and give a bit of land in exchange for peace in the east. It looks like they have gone to war, so the Indian Marian nation and their puppets are fighting the Seleucids and their puppets, so this is quite a big aggressive war here. We'll see who else the Marias are at war with. Looks like they've just peaced out, so maybe that will let the Seleucids expand further westwards, which is really where a lot of the valuable land for them is. So here we have one of the Gallic invasions. You can see that some of the heartland of Macedon here has been occupied, and there's quite a large stack here of Gallic invaders. This is an event in the Invictus mod, which is meant to sort of have parallels with history, where the Gauls invaded Greece and Thrace and Macedon and that sort of thing. So we'll have to keep an eye out on how well these Gallic invaders do against the Macedonians here. And the Antagonists are getting totally wrecked. You can see that they have very little land left, and Egypt is going to town on them quite strongly. In the west, Etruria is still at peace with Rome. They haven't really done very much. Rome is now free to expand south, just as they did, taking the rest of Italy. It looks like Rome, even though they've lost their special status as the only antagonist, there are other antagonists of course now, but it looks like they're still going ham on the rest of Italy, so we'll have to keep an eye on them. In the meantime, we do have some consolidation of the tribes in Western Europe. Looks like we've got a few different tribes coming out on top and taking up terrain. The Carthaginians here don't seem to be doing particularly much. They've got a couple of wars on, but they're not really doing as well as perhaps they could be. They are one of the strongest starts. And down here in the south, the Garamantes, always nice to see, are doing very well against their neighbors. So we'll keep an eye out on these desert peoples, see if they can conquer much of their neighbors or do well in this campaign. We've got a couple of big tribes coming out from Central and Eastern Europe. The Yazigis and the Nurians here are doing quite well. We'll have to keep an eye out on them, see if they can consolidate their position. Looks like the Gauls here have taken a chunk of Asia Minor. So the Galatians, which is a Gallic tribe that's settled here, Druidic Gallic tribe, it looks like they've gotten a foothold and they're going to be expanding probably. The invasion of Macedon is still ongoing, but it looks like actually the Macedonians have managed to mostly stabilize things. So I think they'll be fine here, and they'll be able to hold on to their Greek and Macedonian holdings. The Antagonists still getting pushed back. They're not having a particularly good time of it. They're also at war with Macedon now. And it looks like now there's a war between the Seleucids and the Egyptians, the Ptolemies in Egypt. We'll have to see, but I don't like the Ptolemies' chances here. When the Seleucids get moving, they do have a very strong army. So it looks like they are streaming into the Philistia and that sort of region. And they've got quite a good number of sieges going here. So Venice doing quite well here. As you can see, we've got a big Venice. And Epirus, they are also pushing, as they did historically, into Italy. So we'll have to see how well Epirus can fight with Rome. Rome is at war with them, as you can see here, and at war with a bunch of other states, including Sicily. So potentially, this could be big trouble for Rome. If perhaps the Etrurians got involved here, the Etruscans, then that really would be lights out for Rome, but it looks like they're lucky on that front. So here's Macedon. Looks like they're taking the last of the Antagonids' land. Some random Seleucids turned up here to start sieging the Egyptians. But down here, as you can see, the Seleucids have gotten all the way through to the Egyptian heartlands, the Delta region here, which is very rich and populated. If they take that, it could be lights out for the Ptolemies. And there you go. They've pieced out, and look at the strong position of the Seleucids now. We'll go into them and look in the ledger. So they are now top in number of territories and second only to the Indians in the number of pops. So Seleucids in a very strong position, and with those antagonist bonuses, they look like they might run away with this game. It looks like Epirus has lost its toehold here, and things are going to look bad now for the Syracusans. In Britannia, we've got Corytania coming out as a clear winner, so we'll see if they can expand northwards on the island. And Lemavisia looks like the clear winner in Gaul. A few good large nations in Hispania still. And Mysilia doing very well here. The Garamantes have expanded out to the coast. They've really got a good chunk of land here now. But it looks like that there's not much room that they're going to be able to expand it to. Maybe they can take Cyrenaica, which usually falls to the Ptolemies. But we'll have to see. Looks like the Gauls are starting to expand out northwards now. They're going after Pontus. And Armenia is at war with the Seleucids. That's bad luck. The Seleucids very strong here. It looks like they are getting some good sieges going and managing to siege down most of Armenia. Now, with the Seleucids doing so well, one other big threat that's going to come soon is going to be the Parthian peoples from Central Asia. I believe they get a special war goal eventually to be able to take a bunch of Seleucid land quite quickly, so we'll have to keep an eye out. But if they manage to peace out with Armenia quick enough, then that should be fine for them, I believe. Galatia, the Gauls in Asia Minor here, doing very well. Cappadocia, looks like they've got a rebellion. Thrace is doing very well here. Looks like they've managed to grab some land. We'll keep an eye out on them. Looks like the Antagonists have managed to hold on by the skin of their teeth. They only have a very small number of territories left. Only 47, not much, and it's all very scattered here, so very vulnerable potentially to attacks from the outside. Now the Spartans, they're doing very well, allied with Thrace, and it looks like they can take over much more of Greece. The Neurians are doing well, but now we've got a big Scythia coming out, and the Yazyges are also doing quite well. But the Bosporus Kingdom, which is one of the few sort of civilized so-called nations here, might end up doing quite well. The Bosporans are at war with Scythia, so potentially that could go badly for them. We've got a big Kush here expanding into Africa, so potentially they may be even able to take on the Ptolemies here. The Ptolemies greatly weakened here by their war with the Seleucids, not going very well. And we can have a formidable nation here in Arabia. If one of these really starts to dominate, they can be quite a large power as well. Looks like Corytania is hamming it up. They seem to be the clear winner in Britannia. I think they'll end up taking the rest of the island. Looks like Herses took over Venice, and now they are getting wrecked by Rome. Rome's still doing very well. The Etruscans are kind of sitting here. I'm kind of disappointed in the Etruscans. They should have perhaps made some alliances and tried to oppose Rome. And look, Thrace has really gone to town. They've taken that Galatian territory and taken what was left of Pontus. And they are now fighting. They're fighting against the Spartans as well. But it looks like Thrace are doing really very well. Epirus is fighting Macedon and losing. So it looks like Macedon's going to have a bit of a resurgence. And looks like Rome has begun to get a stranglehold on the Adriatic. And there we go. Now Rome is at war with the Etruscans. So we'll have to see. The Etruscans are awfully outnumbered here. Now that Rome has gotten big, it's going to be quite tough for them to win, but we'll have to see. Rome, of course, has several of their client states coming in as well, but maybe if one of the southern Italian cities also gets involved, they might have a tougher time. Looks like the Etruscans are managing to get some battles. I mean, they are quite large, but it is going to be tough. Looks like Salacia has now gotten involved as well. So that could potentially be a bit of a help, but they don't have too many troops. Although it does look like the Romans are taking some losses, so this is really make or break. I think if the Romans win this war, then they will, once again, as is historical and as it normally goes, they will be in a strong position. But if they lose here, then their position could really be threatened. So we'll have to continue keeping an eye out. In the meantime, Epirus has been completely sieged down. And there you go, there's a piece. Macedon has taken what used to be Epirus. Epirus is now up here. Awfully lost, that's not where it usually goes. And Scythia here has taken the rest of the Crimea and the Bosporan Kingdom. So Scythia now, big power to beat. Looks like Rome has managed to take the W here, and Etruscans are going to be beaten, I'm afraid. If we were going to see Rome beaten, this was their one chance, but now it looks like Rome will actually have the same game as it usually does. But we'll see if maybe later on anyone can challenge them. The Samnites here have managed to hold on longer than I was expecting. They usually get completely stomped by Rome very quickly, but it looks like they have held on. You can see Rome took most of Etruria, so their position is now almost unassailable. We'll have to see if anyone can eventually beat them. In Britannia, Corytania, which I did think was going to take it, has actually started losing ground to Trinovantia, so we'll see which of those two wins, and if anyone can unite Hibernia or Caledonia before then. Just that I said that Scythia was looking very powerful, it looks like the Thracians have managed to come in and they are looking strong. We'll see if the Scythians can turn this around. But Thrace is doing really, really well this game, actually. Although now they're at war with Egypt, so it's looking like they might take some losses here. A two-front war for them, that's very tricky, very sad to see. Armenia has been completely decimated here, been cut in half. And the Seleucids doing strong. But here, in the meantime, Yamnat, this Arabian formidable, is here. And they look like they're going to take the Arabian Peninsula, perhaps. But Kush still going strong. Kush has got some claims on Ptolemaic Egypt, so we'll have to see if they decide to go for it. And as I've said here, Egypt has taken Cyrenaica, so this could put them at odds with the Garamantes. Beginning to have consolidation in Hispania and in Gaul, just a couple of big names coming out of both of them. And we've got this very large Estonian, I believe that Aestia is effectively Estonia, coming out here, so they may be able to take over Eastern Europe and Northern Europe as we know it. Not much happening in Scandia though. It looks like most of it has been depopulated. This usually means that a migratory tribe has upped sticks and probably migrated south where it's much nicer. The Teutons doing well though. Teutonia. This could potentially become Germania. We'll have to see. So it looks like the Ptolemies have managed to really cut Thrace down to size. They've taken a lot of the very rich lands that usually are Thracian, and they've got swathes of Asia Minor here. So it looks like the Ptolemies might come back, but if the Seleucids go to war with them, then it could be very tricky for them. The Seleucids still quite strong, although the Dahai, the Parthians here, are starting to move in on them. We'll have to see. The Samnites are holding quite well. They're taking a lot of southern Italy here. In the meantime, Carthage has almost completed its conquest of Sicily. Egypt has gone to war with the Seleucids again, so it's going to be very interesting what happens here. The two Judean nations have been integrated here into Seleucia, so we'll have to see when they get their main forces in if they can stop the Egyptians. It looks like the Seleucids actually have a two-front war, or a several-front war. They've got Bactrians fighting them, the Mauryas, Cappadocians, and the Egyptians all at the same time. But they're doing well in at least one of those wars, so we'll have to keep an eye out on them. With the AI so aggressive, with being all antagonists, it really does become a bloodbath, so we can see Seleucids having multi-front wars here, multiple sieges. but still managing to hold quite well despite everything. The Garamantes, a fan favorite here, have gotten involved with Carthage, which at this early stage is probably bad news for them, unfortunately. So the Seleucids have peaced out. They've given some land up to the Marias, some land up to the Ptolemies, and looks like they're struggling to win Bactria. They're just fighting on so many fronts that it's very hard for the AI to seemingly get anything done here. But it looks like they're redeploying their troops now, so they'll at least take a win against Bactria, which of course used to be one of their clients, but looks like they've successfully rebelled. Thrace is back. Thrace has gotten some of its lands back, and it's actually doing quite well against Scythia, so we'll have to keep an eye out again. Looks like Thrace, a surprisingly resilient nation here. We've got Macedon at war with Carthage for some reason. I'm not sure how that war began, but this could be a large one as well. The Garamantes, of course, been almost completely sieged down. We've got Camoya coming out of Spain. It looks like this is going to take Hispania and Lemavisia. It's between Lemavisia and Treveria in Gaul, so one of them is going to come out ahead. The Marias are just going to town on India. It looks like they'll soon take the whole subcontinent. Now it's Macedon in trouble. One of the aspects of antagonist nations is they're a lot more opportunistic. So Macedon was at war with Carthage and barely holding its own. So now Egypt's got involved. It's seen that Macedon's in trouble. So it's attacked them from the other side. And it looks like Macedon is going to fall quite badly here with both the Carthaginians and the Ptolemaic Egypt. They're going to really struggle here. 50 years in, we're going to pause and look at the ledger. So by pops, the Marias are the largest, with the Seleucids second, but Ptolemaic Egypt and Rome catching up. By territory, Lemavisia is very large here. It looks like they're the ones who are going to take Gaul, but by pops, they're not so large. They're quite far behind by pops. Not bad by any means, but behind Carthage and Kush. But we'll see if they can translate their large territorial advantage into an actual military one. So it looks like the war between Carthage and Rome has broken out. We'll see if Carthage can muster their troops here. They certainly have a naval advantage, but they'll need to get all their mercenaries and all their levies involved. And it looks like Carthage is busy. They've just peaced out here in Massalia, and maybe now they can get in on the Romans. The Romans certainly are running wild over Sicily here, so the Carthaginians really need to get their business sorted. The Camoyans are finishing off Hispania, so it looks like it's going to be them versus the Lemavisians. Oh, Carthage has landed Rome here, but I'm not sure if that's going to help them very much. They really need to go for Sicily. So Rome, if we look at the Roman mission tree, they are going to want to try and finish off Italia. They're going to want to try and take Carthaginian territory on the boot of Italy here. Looks like Carthaginian AI is just really struggling to get their troops into the battle for Sicily, unfortunately. And in a completely surprising turn of events, it looks like the Taixalians are doing a number on Britannia. It looks like they may even be able to become the dominant power here in Britannia. So it looks like Rome has just taken some chunks out of Carthage, but not all of Sicily just yet. So potential for a Carthaginian comeback if they manage to get themselves mobilized. Kush have a baby on the throne, and nonetheless they're still trying to go for Egypt, but I don't think it's going to go well for them. Once Egypt managed to mobilize, it's likely they're going to be able to take on Kush in a straight up battle. So the Camoyans, as I predicted, have taken most of Hispania, and now they're trying to fight Carthage. Looks like Egypt is distracted. Egypt is now allied to Carthage. So Egypt is distracted fighting for Hispania while also being invaded by the Kushites. We'll have to see if the Hispanians manage to take on Carthaginians. Looks like they've peaced out, actually. And now we've got the basically French-Spanish War, or Lemavisia from Gaul versus Carmoya. Lemavisia have jumped opportunistically, and now there's going to be a big set of battles here. Hard to tell who's winning, but it's probably going to be the Gauls. Aestia has managed to take most of Central Europe and is going out into Scandia now. The Teutons doing pretty disappointingly, to be honest. And look at this. It looks like Lemavisia has indeed made it into Hispania. We've had a formidable come up here, Tartessia. As I predicted, Lemavisia has managed to kick Treveria out of the continent. So we'll see if they manage to get a foothold here in Britannia. Looks like Lemavisia managing to mostly hold on a two-front war. And it looks like Lemavisia have really managed to swing their two-front war in their favor on both fronts. They've got most of Rhaetia taken, and they are rampaging through Tartessia, so this could be one of the main ones to watch. They're out through to the Rhine here, and we'll see if they can make a favorable peace. Oh, the Taixalians, they were doing so well, and now they've been really cut down to size, and Britannia is now looking like a complete layer cake with all sorts of different tribes taking different parts of it. It's looking quite the border gore island, or islands, including Hibernia. So it's 100 years into this very antagonistic AI-only game, and the warfare is beginning to slow down just a little bit. All the tiny tribes have begun to coalesce into just a few power blocks here. Lemavisia, definitely one of the main ones. Aestia out here could be a strong contender. Rome, of course, doing quite well, but not as well as it normally would be, though it is doing strongly. But Carthage, because it's now an antagonist as well, is managing to hold on much better than it usually does. The Ptolemies have had a mixed game there. They've got most of Macedonia, some of Greece, a lot of the Asia Minor region, but it's Thrace. Thrace are still managing to hold on. They've been backwards and forwards. They've taken and lost land throughout, but still holding on. The Seleucids have basically the position they started with, and now they're going to war with the Dahi, which could be a very tough fight for both sides. The Mauryas are really getting cut down to size, and it's this southern Indian nation, so it was Pandya that's now created a formidable that is doing well. If we look at the ledger, we have the Seleucids actually by far on top by pops, and Mauryas have fallen down below this Tamil nation here. The Ptolemies, surprisingly, are second, and Carthage quite high, above Rome, so Carthage still has a chance to reverse the historical outcome of the Punic Wars, and possibly even expand northwards here. If we look at Carthage, its mission, it may go to war with the Ptolemies over Cyrenaica, but otherwise it may go to war with Rome once again, though they have recently peaced out here. As is quite often in this game, we now have two of one nation, so we have a Kalinga over here with this flag, and we have another Kalinga over here with this different flag being invaded by the very strong Tamilakam nation. So, fortunately, we'll soon be back down to just one Kalinga, I think. Poor Taixalia, they were doing so well, but now a tiny little nation from the top of Caledonia here, Cornavia, has managed to take it over. And we now have Lemavisia has finally made it onto Britannia. So it looks like this Gallic powerhouse is not stopping anytime yet. They will soon be forced to fight the Romans. They've got a border here, so that's going to be a big showdown. Rome has managed to chunk some of Ptolemaic Egypt. So unfortunately Aestia was doing so well, but it looks like they've broken apart. And it looks like Aestia has managed to take Flun 3 Jonau Savits. And I encourage people to try and pronounce this nation as a tributary of Aestia. And it looks like the Marias are now at war with Tamilakam, and they're not doing so well. It looks like Tamilakam may just take this. Uh-oh. Oh dear. It's happened. Limavisia has splintered. Look at this. It had all these territories, but now it's broken apart, and all these small regions have become its tributaries. But crucially, that means that it can't call them into war. It can't, as it stands, integrate them. So, big loss for Limavisia. It was looking like it could rival Rome and run away with this game, but now it has splintered. We've got a separate nation here of Aquae Sulis, and it looks like now Cornavia is going to take Britannia and Hibernia. A strange new nation, the Curse of Mart, has sprung up here and is leading a war against the Kushites. So we'll have to see if the Kushites can bring that under control. In the meantime, Rome is still running riot, and it looks like Thrace's luck, which has been very good up to now, has run out as they have collided with Rome. In the meantime, Makkah has done a very good job of consolidating Arabia. I thought Yamnat were going to take it, but they've been taken out. And the Seleucids are the strongest nation, at least on paper. They've expanded north and held most of the rest of their positions. If we look at the ledger, the Seleucids are first, and Rome has jumped several places up to second by pops. The Tamil nation still doing very well, but Egypt has dropped down and Maurya still quite weak. Limavisia, as I mentioned, is trying to take back some of its former glory, but it is still fractured. And we have Cornavia finishing off the conquest of the Britannia and Hibernia. It looks like the curse has peaced out with Kush, and they have this blind guy, inflamed and infected blind fella. The harbinger of chaos is leading them still. So major props to Cornavia for finally taking Britannia. They were a tiny little Caledonian nation up here. They managed to take all of both the islands and Hibernia. Limavisia are coming back. They've just taken one of the breakaway regions that they've had. I think for long-term stability, though, they will need to reform from a settled tribe into either a republic or a monarchy. If we look at the government type map mode, which is actually quite interesting, we can see that the tribes have only been basically banished to here, the northeast of the map, and to the northwest, basically. So it's just Limavisia, Cornavia, and the Dahai that are the largest remaining tribes. The rest, including Scythia, for example, have reformed. And Rome, of course, being a republic, is doing quite well. And also Carthage being the other big republic here. They've got most of the west, and it is the autocratic empires that have got the east by and large. Although Makkah is also an oligarchic republic, so we'll see if they can hold on. Rome is now at war with Scythia, which means they're having to cross these unpopulated lands to get at Scythia itself. Although I imagine they won't have too hard a time once they start getting their levies in there. It looks like they will be taking over much of Scythia. Thrace, though they did take that setback, is managing to, again, consolidate their position, managing to take on the Dahai here, and Scythia as well. So Thrace really been a very resilient nation here in this playthrough, as we reach nearly 150 years of this game. So the Cornavians, having consolidated their hold on Britannia and even now expanded into effectively Germania, have declared war on the unpronounceable Flun Thrionsavids nation. Lemovicia is once again expanding. It broke up there for a while, but now it's starting to ramp up, and it looks like it's taking back some of its old territory, so good for it. And we have Bohemia remaining here in, it looks like, 2 territories in the Alps, having just 1 mountain pass, so holding on by the skin of their teeth. We've got some great name placement here from Rome. You can really see they've stamped their name onto the map. And a little bit up here as well. And let's not forget this tiny little one over here in Hispania. I do just want to point out that over 100 years since being kicked out of the mainland, the Etruscans are happily still holding onto Corsica and chilling. It's 200 years in, and things are looking quite interesting. So Lemovicia still holding on, but they have been losing a bit of ground to Carthage and Rome. Rome still very big, just like it is in a base game. But what's surprising is Thrace is doing really well, and the Spartans, they've become a formable, the Hellenic League. They are a feudatory of Thrace, but the Spartans are holding on. Crete, surprisingly, still here, and Cyprus. The Seleucids have held on to their central position and done quite well. The Mauryas are slightly resurgent. They have managed to take a bit of land off the Tamalakam, but still a fairly undecided war here in India. Looking at the ledger here, we have Seleucids clearly first, Rome on their heels, a very strong second, Carthage doing quite well in third by pops. We have Maurya still strong, they've surged up a few places, and we still have the Ptolemies holding on. But Thrace, surprising to see them quite so high, and of course Thrace do have several feudatories like Pergamon and the Hellenic League. So Thrace also doing quite strongly. And it's looking like Rome's broken out in a civil war with Camilla here taking the lead, a consulship of the rebellion. So we'll see what that's going to do to Rome as they fight it out here. It's funny that now we have broken into the Western Roman dictatorship versus the Eastern Roman Republic. So ERE versus a dictatorial Western Roman Empire. We have Anquaesulis back, but with a different color and a different location. It looks like Thrace has wisely decided to use the Roman revolt as an opportunity to invade Western Rome. And Carthage has joined in as well. As I mentioned, these AIs can be very opportunistic, so seeing that the Western Romans are on the back foot, everyone seems to have piled in on them. Rome has been slightly chunked. You can see some excellent name placement here. But Carthage has taken a large chunk, including Rome itself. So Rome has finished its civil war and has become the Roman kingdom. They've got the dictatorship government type, and it looks like the Roman Republic has fallen, as it did historically. The Indian nation Tamalakam has managed to get this part of the Levant in a peace deal from the Seleucids, and they are now at war with the Egyptians. So the Egyptians are at war here with the Tamalakam. They're also at war here with Lemovicia, which is taking their last holdings in Hispania. So quite an interesting and border gory outcome here. And it looks like the Tamalakam have managed to expand their hold on the Levant. Good for them. We are now in the final decade of this game, and it's time to take stock. Cornavia has definitely had a fantastic game, starting off as an isolated little tribe in Caledonia. They have taken all of Britannia and Hibernia and are still going strong. Lemovicia has had ups and downs, but is still quite a large nation, holding most of Gaul and some of Hispania. Now the Etruscans have established a formable of Corsica. They're still holding on after getting kicked out of mainland Italy at the very start by the Romans, and they're still doing strong. They're sieging down some of the Sardinian tribes. Moving on though, I think Thrace has had the absolute best game. They have held it against Rome, and they are now pushing the Seleucids ever eastwards. So I think Thrace has definitely had the best game here. Of the other majors, Rome, I am surprised Rome has done so well. They are one of the leading powers because their usual advantage of being the only antagonist in the West is nullified here, but they still have done very well. Carthage have held on. The Ptolemies and the Seleucids have barely held on, and the Marias are actually resurgent. So looking now, if we go into the ledger, Thrace is now strongly the largest by pops. Seleucids second, although they are losing a lot of ground. The Romans holding strong, and the Marias are rising through the ranks once again. The final surprise is this formable of Tamalakam, which came up as one of the minors in India and has done fairly well, although now begun to be once again pushed back by the Marias in the Indian subcontinent. I'm going to leave it there. Let me know if you want me to do another AI only battle with some other twist. Perhaps I will make only the minor nations antagonists and see how they get on. But let me know, and thank you for watching.